Well, as I was introduced, I'm part of the Geneva International Center for Justice. It's a privilege for me to be here with you. I'm not a legal expert as some others on this panel, but what is my task here is to talk about the situation of the Palestinians, who, as it has been said already, is one of the classic cases of the denial of self-determination. I have been to Palestine last year twice. I've seen the situation on the ground. In Geneva International Center for Justice, we are in daily touch with the people on the ground. And what I would like to do is to present you the human face of the denial of the self-determination and how it looks like on the ground. So, continue. Well, I think this map is very familiar to many of you, but it demonstrates the lack of self-determination for the Palestinians here. As you have seen, before 1946, there was...
Well, you come here to see it.
That's great.
Yes.
Okay, it was almost all Palestine, the entire region, whereas after the partition plan in 1947, the entire region was divided between Israel and Palestine, which goes against the will of the Palestinians, but still it has been decided like this. Well, after the war in 1967, it has been further divided, and the entire West Bank has been occupied. While it continues under occupation, the lack of self-determination has still increased. So today's situation, what is actually under Palestinian control, you see on the right side of the panel. And I think this is a very, well, it really illustrates the effects of the denial of self-determination under occupation. What is the denial of self-determination? What is the face? What do we talk about? What do we report on when we speak about Palestine? There are three aspects. One aspect is the continuing occupation, of course, of the entire West Bank until this day, since 1967. The second phase of the denial of self-determination are settlements and the creeping land annexation linked to the existence of settlements. And the last point that is very important is the psychological aspect, which is the lack of identity for the Palestinians. And this is something I've seen on the ground, talking to the people, and I've seen the suffering of the lack of identity. I start with occupation. So what does occupation mean? Occupation for the Palestinians in first place does mean heavy military presence. After I've been to West Bank, I was traumatized, I have to say. I wasn't there very long. I went there each time for maybe 10 days. But I can tell you that after I came back, I was traumatized. I was scared every time I saw a soldier. Now imagine, people are growing up in this situation. They face it every day. How must they feel? So this is one part, which is very, very important. The second thing is demolitions. Under occupation, many Palestinian houses are demolished, so they cannot determine where to live. And the third thing, of course, is heavy restrictions on movement throughout Palestine. Palestinians cannot move everywhere. They cannot even go to Jerusalem if they want to. So that is very, very important. Let's see how it looks like, the military presence. This picture has been taken by myself in Hebron in 2012. It was a very simple situation. We had a conference and came back from lunch. And after we came back from lunch, Saudi took the identity cards from some people, just didn't give it back. People complained, and just because they complained, they got arrested. So of course more people complained, more people got arrested, and out of sudden the entire situation escalated. And this was in front of my eyes here. I can tell you I was completely traumatized by this situation. because it was so unnecessary. But this is the daily life under occupation, the military presence everywhere. And nobody can ever be safe. You cannot feel safe under occupation. The second thing are, of course, the checkpoints. The entire West Bank is full of checkpoints. In February 2013, there were 98 fixed checkpoints all over West Bank. 58 are internal checkpoints, which are all situated within the West Bank, and around 70 checkpoints are in Hebron. These checkpoints are staffed, but they are also closed. Well, of course, this has an impact. The checkpoints to Israel, everybody knows the workers, Palestinian workers, they want to work in Israel, they have to stand up at 3 in the morning if they want to be on work on time, which may be 8 in the morning. This is daily, 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 daily. The second thing is medical urgencies. I have visited families that have lost children because the ambulance didn't arrive on time. A woman told me that she was pregnant with twins and she had to walk down to the checkpoints because under occupation and with checkpoints, the ambulance was not allowed to pass. So this is another aspect of the military presence and checkpoints. And as you see here, even little children, this is a checkpoint I have almost daily passed when I was in Hebron. And this is a normal checkpoint and it is completely unnecessary. It is in the heart of the city, but you could equally, if you want, you could equally walk around, make a detour of about 10 minutes. So it's unnecessary, it's in some way, it's just there to annoy the Palestinians. And if you read the latest book of Breaking the Silence, which is our harsh logic, some of you might have heard about it, it precisely describes that the presence of checkpoints is very much made just to make life impossible. So I just encourage you to read this book as well. So it's hard to read, but it will open your eyes. Demolitions are another aspect of the occupation. The Israeli human rights organization B'Tselem just said in 2013 there have been already 139 housing units demolished, which left 306 people homeless, among them 176 minors. These house demolitions have often come by surprise. When I was in Hebron, I met Hamid Kouasme, who is working for the Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights, and he told me about the practices of demolitions. He said to me, Daniela, it's very simple. They go to faraway villages. But these people are illiterate, are very simple. They bring the demolition order. They are supposed to deliver it. Since there is nobody on the spot who could read it, they just place it behind a stone and leave. They take an evidence picture and leave. Then, one day you see the bulldozers, they demolish the houses, and the families don't know where to go. There are other cases when children came home from school and stood in front of their demolished houses. And the Geneva Conventions demand that appropriate housing is provided for people that are displaced. This is not the case for these families. This is another aspect of the occupation. Recently, we also issued an urgent appeal or a report on the firing zone 980. This is a firing zone where about 1,000 Bedouins shall be expelled for military training reasons. So at the moment, the decision has been postponed, but since many years, the case is pending. So these are all aspects of the occupation. The next thing, of course, are the settlements. Everybody knows about the settlements, but how does it look like? I mean, the 4th Geneva Conventions, Article 49, say, the occupying power shall not deport or transfer part of its own civil population into the territories it occupies. This, of course, what happens in West Bank is in contradiction to the Geneva Conventions, but Israel continues to bring in settlers to West Bank. So at present, there are about 250 settlements in the West Bank, including Jerusalem. The number of settlers in the West Bank is about 520,000. So 200,000 in East Jerusalem and 320,000 in the rest of the West Bank. And most of them in Area C. So in Area C is under full Israeli control. According to the Oslo agreements, the entire West Bank has been divided into 3 zones. Zone A is under full Palestinian control, which is mostly urban areas. It's 18%. Area B is under mixed control, which is 22%, and 60% of the entire West Bank are Area C, which is under full Israeli control. Most of the settlements are located in Area C, and in general, they start just like a small outpost, which is not demolished, which is protected by military, and which more and more becomes a village. I've seen the village in Kiryat Arba, the settlement in Kiryat Arba, it's about 30,000 people, so it's entire towns. This is part of the Crimean land annexation under occupation, and is part, of course, of the denial of self-determination. On a small scale, for example, in Hebron, it looks like this. You can see how the Israeli settlements are in blue. And Hebron is a special case because the settlements have been installed in the heart of the city. Inside Hebron, there are about 600 settlers living there, with a military presence of about 1,500. These soldiers are there all around the clock, just to protect the settlers. The settlers are in Hebron because Hebron has a religious value for the Jews. And the settlers think they have the right to live there. But it means, in practice, that the entire life of the Palestinians in Hebron is affected by these settlers and by the military presence. This has as a consequence that there are checkpoints throughout the city, that the main market street of Hebron has been closed in favor of the settlers. There have been over 1,000 shops have been closed. Many families displaced. The families don't even have the right to leave the houses through their front door. They have to climb over the roofs in order to reach their homes. So this is the result on a small scale of Hebron. So this is the impact of settlements. Settler violence. Under occupation, the military is there to protect the settlers. Officially, they are there to protect both Palestinians and Israelis. In practice, they protect the settlers. You have, in West Bank, you have a double law system. You have the military law, which applies to Palestinians, and the civil law, which applies to Israelis. Which means, against Palestinian children, they can be arrested from the age of 10 years old. Israeli children from the age of 12. Settler violence is another thing. One Palestinian child that throws a stone will find itself in prison. But this is Hebron's Shohada Street, where the 600 settlers live. Actually, they overlook the market street, the other part of the market street, and this is what they throw in the head of the Palestinians. This is garbage, so this is just a closed area, but they are also overlooking the market street where the real markets. By now, they have covered the markets because they throw everything, boiling water, oil, garbage, everything on the head of Palestinians without any punishment. And reports just show that it is basically to expel Palestinians from the area and make their life impossible. And this is under occupation. Here you see Hebron's Shohada Street, which by now is empty. It was the main market street of Hebron. This is how, under occupation and with the denial of the right to self-determination, life ends up. An example is the Rajabi house. The Rajabi house was built by Palestinians, And before Palestinian families could put in their windows, settlers moved in. They claimed to have bought the house, but apparently it is very obvious that the documents were forged. International organizations, especially the Christian peacemaker teams, worked hard to get them out. Before they got them out, settlers burned all olive trees around, just to make it impossible, just to punish the Palestinians for being expelled. They assaulted Palestinians. Finally, they had to leave the house, but soldiers moved in. When I came at that time here, so it was also, it's my picture, there were soldiers in it. By now, the case is pending again. So since there was a case on the 2nd of September, but the court postponed the decision. But at the moment, at the present, settlers are pushing, they want to come back. It's mainly right-wing settlers. The last example for today, this happened this week. I just want to read it because it's a friend. Well, it exemplifies the occupation. So it happened this week. Israeli soldiers stationed at the entrance to Shohada Street in the center of Hebron brutally attacked Mofid Sharabati before they detained him. They also assaulted another, Imad al-Atrash, I know this guy, who was taken to Hebron's public hospital, the group site. Youth Against Settlement spokesman Isa Amlo said that earlier Monday, Israeli soldiers had raided Sharabati's home, which is undergoing construction work. The Israeli forces prevented the entry of building materials to the house and ordered laborers to stop work. After long discussion, the soldiers agreed to allow the construction materials to be brought into the house on the condition that Sharabati demolished the recently built bathroom. Sharabati had no choice but to demolish the bathroom, but after he finished, the soldiers refused to allow construction material into his house as agreed. Instead, they mocked him, and heated argument developed between him and the soldiers, who assaulted him before they detained him. So this is the face of occupation and the denial of self-determination. And I very much appreciate the sentence of Alfred Desire when he said that self-determination is a precondition for peace. And I think such cases here just underline and just prove his point. So the last thing was the psychological aspect, and here I don't want to talk about political issues or whatever. That's not my task here. But I want to tell the story when I came with a Palestinian friend to the United Nations 2 years ago. We were a group of 30 people from countries all around the world. And yes, and we had a group picture in front of the United Nations. Everybody held up his passport and showed on the map where is his country. And my Palestinian friend, he had tears in his eyes. He said, "Where am I? Who am I? I don't have the right to self-determination. I don't exist." So in this sense, I would like to just speak out in favor of the Palestinians and underline the importance of self-determination. Thank you.